Okay, so to start today's lesson, we're going to go ahead and look at our application problem or our story problem. Tristan has 4 packs of cookies to share with his friends. Each pack has 6 cookies. How many cookies does Tristan have to share? So when we look at this problem, we need to first understand what the problem is saying. So in this problem, we know that Tristan has 4 packs of cookies. But however, in those packs of cookies, each pack has 6 cookies. So we need to decide how many cookies that Tristan has to share. So this is an equal groups problem with our product unknown. So this is going to be a multiplication problem. So the first thing that I wanted to start with is getting our number sentence together. So we know that he has 4 packs of cookies. And we know that each one of Tristan's packs of cookies has 6 cookies in there, okay? So we know, now we can see that the problem is 4 times 6. Well, let's go ahead and, you can use whatever strategy or tool that you have that you want to use to solve this, but for this video, we're going to go ahead and start with a number bond. So remember, with our number bond, we have a part whole. Well, this one's pretty easy because we have both parts to our number bond. We know that Tristan has 4 packs of cookies, and that in each pack of his cookies, he has 6 cookies. So we know that we need to multiply these numbers. It's in equal groups with the product unknown. And remember, product is just a fancy word for an answer to a multiplication problem. So let's see. So what we're going to do is we are going to use an array to solve 4 times 6. So this tells me that there are 4 rows of 6. So we're going to go ahead and get our counters, and we're going to do 4 rows of 6. So here's my first row of 6. So row 1 of 6, row 2 of 6. And the only thing is, if you're going to draw these, you're just going to have to be really careful, because in math we need to be neat. It's easy to miscount your circles or to draw more circles than you have. Okay, so then we have row 3 of 6, and I know I need 4 rows because that's my first part, and my 4th row of 6. So we can skip count these. You can solve those any way you want, but I'm going to go ahead and write the number after each row, and then we can add those up. So in this row there's 6, this row there's 6, this row there's 6, and this. I didn't have to count them. I know I already built 4 rows of 6. So we just needed to solve. 6 plus 6 is 12, and 6 plus 6 is 12. And 12 plus 12, well, 10 and 10 is 20, and 2 and 2 is 4 to get 24. Or 2 plus 2 is 4, and 110 and 110 is 2 tens to get the answer 24. So I can come back to my number bond. Pretty easy now. My first part was 4, my second part was 4, and now I have my whole, which is 24. I can come down to my number sentence. 4 times 6, I know that now. 4 times 6 is 24. So now we can answer the question, how many cookies does Tristan have to share? Tristan has 24 cookies to share. So if it was looking for a statement, then you'd have to use your words there. All right, so before we start today's lesson, we're just going to do a quick review. Let's take a look at our vocabulary that we've been working on. So we have, our first one is digit, and that is any single one of the symbols 0 through 9. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay? So that is what a digit is. Then the next one we have was place value. And we worked a lot on that. So the place value is the value of all of the places of a digit in a number. So when we worked on place value, we went all the way up to 100, to the hundreds place value. So we have the ones, tens, and hundreds. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to look at some numbers that have the tens place value, and we're just going to write the number underneath. So, or bring our pieces over. So if I give you the number 56, well, I already know that if I look to the number on the right is my ones, and in the number 56, I know that there are 6 ones. So I'm going to go ahead and bring over 6 ones. Okay, and then if I look at the digit to the left of that is a 5. That's a digit in the tens place, and it tells me that there's 5. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if I wanted to, I could go back and check my answer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tens to give me the number 56. Great, let's look at another number. All right, so let's look at the number 24. So this is the number 24. Well, I can remember that the number all the way to the right is my ones. And then the number 24, I have 4 ones. And the number to the left of that is the tens, which is 2. So there must be 2 tens. So there are 2 tens and 4 ones. And if you wanted to double check your answer, 4 ones and 2 tens definitely make the number 24. All right, let's try another one of those. All right, let's try the number 19. So looking at the number 19, we looked at the digit all the way to the right. That is a 9. That means that there are 9 ones. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And the number to the left of that is the tens, which is a 1. So there is 1 10. And just to be sure, you can go back and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 1 10 to give me the number 19. Let's try some harder ones. So let's go ahead and do some numbers that are in the hundreds place value. So let's do the number 117. Okay, so we've done this before, it's just review. We're going to look at the number in the ones place is a 7, so we're going to go ahead and bring over 7 ones. The digit to the left of that is the tens place, which is a 110, so we're going to bring over 110. And the number to the left of that is 100. So we're going to bring over 100. And again, the same process, we can check our answer. So let's go ahead and take a look. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ones, 110, and 100, which gives me the number 117. All right, so those ones, there's more place value, but the process is the same. So let's go ahead and take a look at another number. Let's look at the number 234. Okay, so we look at the digit in the ones place, the digit all the way to the right, and we get 4. There's a 4, so we know that there are going to be 4 ones. 4 ones. And then we look to the digit to the left of the ones to find the tens. We have 3 tens. 1, 2, and 3. And the number in the hundreds is 2. 2 hundreds. So 1, 2. And again, we can go ahead and check to make sure our answer's right. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 ones, 1, 2, 3, 3 tens, and 1, 2, 200s. So the number is 234. Let's do one more. It's going to be a little bit of a tricky one. All right, let's go ahead and do the number 107. Let's do the number 107. So we look at the number in the ones place, the digit all the way to the right. It gives me 7. So I'm going to go ahead and put my 7 ones. Okay, and then I look at the number to the left of there, the number in the tens place, 0. So that means that I am putting no tens in the tens block, in the tens place value. And then the hundreds, there's 1 of those. So there's 100. So we're going to go ahead and write our number. This one just looks a little bit different, but it's the same process. So then ones, there are 7. How many numbers are in the tens? 0. Don't forget that 0, or you're going to come up with the number 17. And there are 100. So 107. And you'd be able, if you went back and read your number 17, you know that wouldn't make sense because you have a number in the hundreds place. All right, great job. So for today's lesson, we are going to add a new vocabulary word to our list. We are going to round. So our new vocabulary is round to a whole number. And what our learning goal or our objective is today is to use a number line to round numbers to the nearest 10 or 100. So rounding to a whole number just means to find the number nearest 10, to find the nearest 10, 100, or 1,000, and so on. But today we're just going to do the tens and hundreds. So we created this anchor chart for rounding. It says for rounding, we're using a number line to round these numbers. And a way that we can remember how is if the number is less than halfway, through your number line, we're going to round down, and if it's more halfway or more, we're going to round up. And I'm going to show you what that might look like. So to start with, and remember, and there's plenty there. We round all the time, friends. So for instance, somebody might come up to you and ask you when your birthday is. You might say, oh, it's in about 4 months or in about 25 days. Your birthday's not exactly 4 months or 25 days. It's just about. So you wouldn't have to go back and count each day until your birthday. So it really makes math a little bit easier. It makes numbers a little easier. Or you might even be at the store and you find a candy bar costs $1.98, and you go and ask your mom or dad for $2. Well, you're asking for $2 because it's easier to ask or say $2 than for $1.99. You would just probably pay the person $2 and you would get your change back. So rounding really just makes numbers a little bit easier. So what we're going to start with is we are going to start with a horizontal number line. So when you're creating your number line, you're not going to have to do that today, but when you are creating your number line, you don't need to start your number line at 0, but you are going to have to decide what numbers you're going to put in your number line. So how do we do that? Well, let's start with an easy number. Remember, we're rounding to the nearest 10 or 100. So let's start with the number 51. So 51 is numbers that are in the tens place, so that's how I'm going to number my number line. So the first number I'm going to put on my number line is 10, and then 20, and so on. So 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. And the reason that I just put these ticks in the middle is just to show me like a midway, like halfway between 10 and 20, which you guys already know the number halfway between 10 and 20 is 15. Halfway between 20 and 30 is 25. So those are going to be your 15, 25, 35, 45, and those are really going to be what's going to help us decide when we come back to our anchor chart if the number is less than halfway or if the number is halfway or more. So let's go ahead and take a look at the number 51. So we can see the number 51 is going to be between what two tens? Well, I already know it has to be between 50 and something else. What comes next? 60. So 51 is going to be somewhere between 50 and 60. So if I come back to my number line, I can find the 50 and 60 on my number line, and I know that midway is going to be 55, and I know that 51 is less than 55. So I'm going to put my counter, my marker, my dot, whatever you're using, right at the 51 mark. So now I'm going to come on over to my anchor chart and decide, is this number less than halfway? If so, I'm going to round down. Is this number more than halfway or halfway? Yes, then I'm going to round up. So let's go ahead and take a look at our number. And this is I would say that this is less than halfway because it's right at the 51 mark. So this is less than halfway. So 51 will round to the number 50. So 51 rounded. So if you needed 51 as something, you would say about 50. Okay, so 51 rounded to the nearest 10 is 50. Let's take a look at another number. Let's take a look at the number 37. Okay, so the first thing we need to decide is what two tens is the number 37 between. So looking at this number, I know that 37 has to be 3 or more tens. So it's between 30 and the next 10 would be 40. So this number is between 30 and 40. So now I'm going to decide where I'm going to put my dot or my counter, my marking, whatever you're using. So I know that my midway mark is 35 and 37 is greater than 35, so I'm going to put it after. All right, the next step is deciding, Is this number less than halfway or halfway or more? Well, when we look at the number, I know that the halfway mark is here and it is past the halfway mark. That tells me that I need to round up to the next 10. So 37 rounded to the next 10 would be 40. So 37, we could say rounding is about 40. All right, let's look at one more number. Let's look at the number 82. Okay, so thinking about the number 82, the first thing we need to decide is what two tens is it in between. The number 82 is between 80 and 90. So I'm going to look at it. I know that the halfway point, the halfway mark is going to be 85, and 82 is less than 85, so I'm going to put it to the left of the halfway mark. I already know it's the same pattern that this means this is less than halfway. And if it is less than halfway, then you round down a 10. So 82 rounded to a 10 is 80. So 82 rounds down to 80. All right, so that is rounding to the nearest 10 using a number line. Now the second part of today's lesson is going to be rounding to the nearest 100 using a number line. Now boys and girls, it is the same process, okay? So again, we do not need to start our number line at 0. And this time I'm not going to label my number line by tens because we are rounding to the nearest 100. So I'm going to label my number line by 100. So I'm going to start with 100. And I'm going to keep those middle ticks there, those halfway marks, to remind me of where I'm placing my counter. So 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, and you know what? I'm just going to go all the way up to 1,000. You don't have to. All right, so again, it's the same process. We're still rounding. We're still using that less than halfway or the halfway or more than halfway. They're just bigger numbers. So let's go ahead and take a look at the number 125. Okay? So looking at our number line, the first thing to decide is what two hundreds is 125 between. Well, I know it starts with 100, so it has to be after 100. So looking at my number line, it is between 100 and 200. So the second part is deciding whether it's less than halfway, halfway, or more. Well, I know that in between 100 and 200 midway is 150. If we went through the whole number line, we could say what's between 200 and 300, 250. And if it helps you, you can write those numbers in as well. Well, let's look at the number 125. The halfway mark is 150. We know that 125 is less than 150. So I'm going to put my mark a little less, maybe in between the 100 and 150, less than halfway. Okay, so if I forgot what my process is, I can go ahead and take a look at my chart here. It says if the number is less than halfway, we round down, and if the number is halfway or more, we round up. Well, you can see that this is going to be less than halfway, so 125 is going to round to 100. All right, let's try another one. Let's try the number 375. So taking a look at our number, the first thing we need to decide is what two hundreds is the number 375 between. I know it has to be at least 300, so I come down to my number line and I find 300. It is between the 300 and the 400. My next step is to decide, is it halfway, less than halfway, or more than halfway? Well, I know that the halfway mark is 350. And you know what? 375. And if you're not sure, you can write the number out. 350. This one has 5 tens and 7 tens. So we know that it's going to be more. So 375 is going to be past the halfway mark. So now it's your job to determine whether you're going to round down 100 or if you're going to round up 100. So we notice that this is more than halfway. So more than halfway tells me to round up. So 375, between 300 and 400. I think I placed it, so between 300 and 400. So it's going to be right past the 350 mark. So it's more than halfway. So 375 will round to 400. Let's try one more. All right, let's do the number 619. All right, so looking at the number 619, we know that it needs to be between 600 and 700. We just need to decide whether it's going to be less than, halfway, or more than halfway. So looking at the 619, I know the midway mark is 650. I'm already seeing that 619 is less than the number 615, so I am going to put it in between the midway mark, so, or in between this, right after the 600. So it's going to be less than halfway, and less than halfway tells me to round down. So 619 rounded to the nearest 100 is 600. So again, just to recap, if you are rounding to the nearest 10, and if you need to label your number line, you're going to want to have smaller numbers, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. You know, you can go up as high as you want, but you need to have those smaller numbers, or it's going to make your rounding a little bit harder to place your dot or your counter. If you are rounding to the nearest 100, it is easiest to number your number line by the your number line to the hundreds, because some numbers are going to be big, like 800 or 900, or small, like 100 or 200. So to really get that accurate rounding number, just want to be sure to label your number line, and remember you don't need to start at 0. Okay, so our new learning goal was to round numbers to the nearest 10 or 100, and our new vocabulary word was to round numbers to a whole number, which is to find its nearest 10 or 100.